not to the cloud. Okay, we're screen sharing and we are recording. So I just was thinking, what is the most powerful team? We've been talking about teamwork for last week and this week. What is the most powerful team that we have?
Good team.
Teamwork.
Yeah. As far as the teams that we all work with on a regular basis, which team do you work with? Most of us. Well, looks like about half of us, okay, of what I see there, um, are involved in some very, very powerful teams. See, that half was sort of a clue. So what is the most powerful team that you guys work with?
Marriage.
I would think so. I would hope so. I would hope so. And apparently we have another powerful team getting ready to form. Am I right there?
Look out.
Look out. Okay, I love it.
We got one even this weekend. Watch out.
We've got another one this weekend too.
Oh, really? Okay. Snowballing, huh?
Yeah. Multiplying.
That is fantastic. I highly recommend marriage. Uh, and I'm not saying that because my wife may listen to this later either. Um, and by the way, just I didn't even think till just now. Today's my anniversary. Uh, we have been married 48 years today. So
Wow.
we've been doing this a while, and I still recommend it. But the reason I bring that up is because we're talking about teams and the same kinds of principles that we use for larger organizations work for our marriages and our families too. It's a very small team, and so there's obviously differences, but still those same things work there. We can use our marriage as and our families as an example of a team, and we can practice those same things. We've talked about leadership and about motivation, and and those are also things that we can take the same principles from there and use those in our families, and not just for workplaces, not just for daily outside the homework, but they're important for families too. They're not just for one place and nowhere else. Um, so anyway, feel free to borrow ideas and use them in your marriage too. Don't use your spouse for a guinea pig and say, I just want to try this and see if it works. Try it in faith, okay? So I'm going to get myself in trouble. I will change the subject. Um, so what did you guys come up with this week? What kind of lessons did you apply? What kind of little things did you say, yeah, I'll try that out and see how it works? Or different ideas that you came up with?
Question.
Yeah, I know it's early in the morning, but I'm going to ask every week. So
I think in my more just in regards to leadership is praying for people more. Yeah, on the base because praying for a lot of people out on the streets and out in the community that the Lord's really been softening my heart towards praying for the people who are here on base. And so I guess that's part of teamwork as well, being able to pray for one another, the spiritual side of it, because I've been getting a little bit frustrated when you were talking about last week, the lowering of standards.
yeah,
And so I was just like, constantly trying to do a heart check in my own life when things aren't sort of holding to the structure or the integrity of the ministry. Yeah, when it comes to people and, you know, schedules and time frames and however you want to look at it, and just reminding myself that, you know, the outworking of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I'm not praying for someone, how can I sort of? I was just feeling in my heart like, if I'm not praying for that person and I'm just trying to get them to do something, or I haven't prayed for them, then how can I even bring some type of action or in that? Like, yeah. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And I'm,
winning it in the spirit, spiritually, like in prayer, you know, seeing how God sees people is it's a challenge, you know. And you're constantly in a
yeah.
community and you're brushing off one another. And, you know, Dr. Wayne says if you see something in someone else, it's most likely you're seeing it in yourself, you know, taking the plank out of your own eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I remember when I was very young, probably still in primary school, a pastor told me one time, he said, remember, anytime you point your finger at somebody, your three fingers pointing back at you. And it took me many, many years to realize just how much truth there is in that, because and if you look around, of course, there a lot of people in the United States are very upset at our president. A lot of people are very, very happy with our president. There's the largest divide in our nation that I've ever seen. But the funny thing is, not funny, the crazy thing is that the people who are screaming the loudest often have the most to hide. And so because they're afraid they're going to have, you know, their gravy train's going to get stopped, or they're trying to deflect attention from the things that they're doing wrong and put the blame on somebody else. And so it's a natural human thing. But I'm really grateful that you brought that up, because one of the biggest challenges in this type of thing that we're doing is to take it from our discussions and put it to work and put it to use. And which is why I start off these meetings this way, is to help us to think about, how do I put this stuff to use? But what you hit on is something that is absolutely critical, is doing it prayerfully. And I know there are a lot of times when I think I by what I understand, I know what should be done. I just don't know how to do it. And so many times I'll just pray, Lord, give me a strategy for dealing with this issue. And I a lot with my wife. We'll have some kind of a discussion about something, and then I'll walk away and I think we need to continue the discussion. Father, give me a strategy for resolving our opinions, or resolving where we are, or and with everything else. I did it in my work life as well. Give me a strategy, Father, for this. Give me a strategy to make me a better communicator. Give me a strategy for how and what to share the things that my team needs to understand. Give me a strategy for building a culture that glorifies your name and helps them to love working with us and working together and so on. So I really appreciate that. That's really a critical key, and also, of course, praying for the other personal kinds of things as well, and the specific issues that rise up. But a lot of times it really helps just to pray for a strategy. And there are a lot of times when I'll do it, because if I try to I tend to be very direct. And if there's a problem, here's a solution, let's do it and move on, which doesn't work for most people most of the time. And so I've learned over the years to say, no, just slow down, take a step back, and ask God for a strategy to help deal with this. And of course, He's always faithful to answer sooner or later, usually on His schedule, not mine. So good stuff, good stuff. What else?
Yeah, I got one. If it doesn't apply, let it fly.
If it doesn't apply, don't apply it. Tell me more.
Let it fly.
Let it fly.
Because we, I think this week, we're still learning, but I think we always go back and revert, take it back to ourselves. And that's, I think, then we go become fleshly. And then we judge accordingly to the flesh instead of taking it to God. That you're saying prayerfully and seeking Him first. Because I think that's what we do. Just one of the parts of the ministry of teamwork is our day. It's kind of our daily bread. But putting God first and doing it. This week, a lot of things could have been resolved if we use the right applicator for the job, and we didn't have to get consumed into applying things that weren't necessary for everything. Actually, even in the ministry, even with the tents as well. There's a lot of things that I don't have to do. I can give it to someone that I know that I got faith in them that they're more than capable of doing it, just to spread that weight out instead of trying to take it upon yourself. And then what happens when you take it upon yourself? It becomes too heavy, and then you crumble. Like on our ship, you know. So that's just one part this week we've been working with.
Yeah, that's really cool. I actually wrote that down. That's I love that. You know, we have a common saying here that you give a man a hammer and everything's a nail. So there's a real tendency to take whatever tools you have and try to use them, you know, in the wrong places. And use them to do things they're not made to do. So yeah, good deal.
That's a good one. I'll use that one.
Yeah.
What else we got?
I've been kind of applying stuff we've learned about like communication stuff in my business with my customers and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like just with like just being very clear and like of outlining what the job is going to entail and like the breakdown of the costs and everything like that. And like I keeping it personal as well, so making them feel giving them the choice
Mhm.
of like different options when I go out to do the quote. I've since been like doing that, like yeah, it's opened up a lot of doors, like communities and
Fantastic.
stuff. Yeah,
Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff, guys. I really appreciate that. Good stuff. Still making our beds in the morning?
Oh, come on now.
Every day.
One side of the ship anyway.
Didn't I make it this morning?
No, one side of the ship.
It's like you said, two become one. So if my wife makes it, she's making it on my behalf.
That's it. I was actually grateful to sit on this side of the room.
No, you're right, Keith. You're right.
I think I didn't make my.
What about you guys? That's me.
Well,
Right. Still in the making.
Still in the making.
you know, the goal is excellence in everything, and this is just a little step along the way. So,
Character, amen.
and I actually think about that myself every morning, whether I make the bed or not. So,
You do.
and usually, sometimes Nancy will get up first, sometimes I'll get up first, and I try to make up my side whenever I get up, and of course her side's not, but she comes back and fixes it. So it's a team thing, okay? Making a bed for us is a team activity. So that's my excuse. I mean, that's my story. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
That's your reality.
Yeah, that's my reality. Okay. we talked sometime a little bit last week about the idea teamwork makes the dream work, and kind of questioned that a little bit and kind of spelled out some specific uh, things that need to happen for teams to work. And we listed four things, and I really want to just spend a few minutes and uh, hopefully give this a little more clarity, make it a little clearer for us. But we talked about four things that have to happen for teams to work well. There needs to be a cohesiveness, a sort of a we feeling, communication, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Common goals. Uh, it's kind of funny that people have asked Nancy and me over the years why we've stuck together so long and why things have worked out for us. And uh, I think there's really one thing that's always been that we've always answered, and it's kind of been a common answer for as long as we've been married, is we've always been going the same place. And so walking there with somebody who's going the same place you are makes it a lot easier, for sure. Another thing we did early on is we just made the decision that the word divorce was not in our vocabulary. We just in our minds took it out of our dictionary. So we've never thrown that word up, and I don't believe most of us do that. But the biggest thing for us is just we've always been going the same place. And the fourth thing we talked about was the norms and roles, the character and the personality of the organization, and how we fit in. But what I just want to take a few minutes and do is just say there are other words that we use more often that we're more comfortable with that kind of get those ideas across too. When we talk about cohesiveness, we're really talking about unity. That we really have some connectedness amongst ourselves, and that we have one purpose, one direction, and so we're unified. We're all on the same page. We support, we encourage, we defend each other, and so on. Communication is really just aggressive, persistent openness, just being open and honest, and but doing that aggressively and persistently. And I appreciate you bringing that up a minute ago too. Is how what a benefit that is. But it really takes, for me, I really have to work hard at it. Most people do, but again, my natural tendency is to say, here's where we are, here's where we're going, this is the problem, fix it, let's go. And which again doesn't really do a whole lot of good. But I've got to be persistent. And a lot of times when we do that, we solve problems before they ever come up anyway. And so, like you said, laying out the uh what we're going to be doing, laying out what we're up to, and kind of walking through things is a great way to do that too. Common goals are a lot. We're talking basically about vision, our vision and our purpose. Where are we going? And so when we talk about norms, rules, we're really talking about a group culture, the character of the group, the personality of the group, and then where I fit into it. What's my role? What's my place? And we all have different places we fit in. Otherwise, we don't need a team if we're all doing the same thing. So just some other kind of ways to frame those things that might be a little more in terms of the words we use more. So another phrase that we hear sometimes is the one, either you're for us or against us. Any reactions to that one? What's your initial reaction when I put that up?
Works or against them.
Well, here's mine.
Oh,
Be- because that attitude really gets toxic. That can really be toxic. Because it gets to be very exclusive, and what it does is it takes this whole idea of unity or cohesiveness and puts some really thick walls around it, to where you start forcing people to behave and act and think a certain way. Uh, Culture, cohesiveness, and commitment are critical for teams and organizations to work well. And being loyal is important as well. I mean, if you pick on my teammates, you're picking on me, and so that's fine. We need to look out and care for one another and be loyal and so forth. But if we draw a line in the sand, we can cause some serious problems. Uh, One of the problems that happens a lot sometimes this idea of groupthink, which is some psychologists came up with that word, and then you guys familiar with that idea? Um, what did I do? What did I do?
Phrase, the phrase reminds me of whenever the disciples were trying to surround Jesus and talk about everybody has preaching a different message. And he said, well, if they're not against us, they're for us. So it's like his reality was the opposite. It was like, if they're not actually preaching against the gospel, then it doesn't matter if they're doing it differently or if they're not of the same tribe as us, they're basically for us. So,
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's real. I hadn't thought of that. That's really cool. Because it's the redemptive side of that thing, isn't it? Yeah. So we're
rather
taking,
than they're doing it differently or that there's differences.
yeah. Yeah, we're taking this group idea and making it an inclusive thing instead of an exclusive thing. We're embracing other people instead of excluding other people, holding them out. Good stuff. Um, this idea of
Yeah.
groupthink, though, um, basically, it's the idea when there's so much pressure for people to be on the same page,
Yeah.
to work together, to conform to the group, to be unified with the group, to be part of the group, and so forth. When people start doing that too much, then people quit thinking, and they're kind of their honesty level kind of goes out the window.
Right.
People they won't do anything that ripples the water. They won't do anything that make waves or acts like I'm not part of the team. I don't want anybody to think I'm not part of the team. I don't want anybody to think that I'm against them. I don't want anybody to think I'm weird or different or those kinds of things. Uh, and it actually can in faith-based groups especially, it can turn into a cult. And we may be familiar with some organizations that have become very cult-like because they begin to worship the leader and worship the group and the organization, the church or whatever, more than they do the word or more than they do Jesus. So, but it still can happen. It still can happen. It's something to keep our eyes and ears open for, because sometimes again, when people are really hard committed to one another and hard committed to the group, to its purposes and stuff like that, then it can kind of get to the point where uh, we're not going to do anything that distracts us from our unity, that distracts or takes away from our connectedness, our unity, our being on the same page and working together. And so then people begin to start to shut down, and they can start becoming just like little robots instead of human beings. So some kind of things that you might hear when that mentality starts to take root, people kind of have this attitude that stuff doesn't happen to us. You know, because people feel like they're invulnerable to the problems that those other folks have. Um, or we've already taken care of that. That stuff only applies to them. You know, we don't have those kinds of problems. They only have that. We're on the right page. We're doing right, and so that's not going to apply to us. I'm not worried about that. Uh, or we're serving God, and He'll take care of us. Which is sort of we don't question our group's morality. We don't question the idea that we're all faithful believers and always on the right page and doing the right thing. We never challenge anybody and I've actually fallen into this trap myself. I wouldn't challenge the pastor when he would make a mistake, and I could see it and I think, well, he's the pastor, he's following God, and he's God's mouthpiece to the house and things like that, and then sometime later think I should have spoken up because that was a mistake. But again, that's when you got to pray about that a lot. Uh, Another thing you might hear is we're not those people. We're not them. We're not Baptists. We're not Assemblies of God. We're not Pentecostals. We're not Catholics or whatever else. They don't have the Holy Spirit. We do. They don't have the same kind of giftings that we have. You know, we're on, which basically kind of it separates you from everybody else, and basically you kind of feel like you're special, and everybody else isn't. Sometimes some people get very direct about it and just ask them, "You on our team or not? Are you with us or are you with us or against us?" You know, make a choice. Either get on board with the rest of the team or get off or something like that. They can be very, very direct about that. And there are places to do that. There are standards that we have to have. But when it kind of gets to where especially when somebody who's not in a leadership position begins to do that, then you got to just start paying attention. Or somebody just might think to themselves, it wasn't a good idea anyway. I'm not gonna speak up. People begin to shut themselves down. Sometimes somebody just pipe up and say, "We're all on the same page here. Let's move on ahead." Before they actually have time to hear somebody else who's not on the same page and resolve the issue. Basically, they start uh, informing people are on the same page, whether they really are or not. And so you create this illusion that everybody is on the same page, even if they're not there. And you might have some people who will pop up and say, "I've already talked with these other folks on the outside, and their ideas don't really fit. They don't hold water for us anyway." So they start trying to shut out any information that's going to kind of go against what the group wants to do. So those are just some examples of things that might start popping up if the group is getting that to that stage where it's insulating and isolating itself uh, from reality, really. And preventing it is not really hard to do. If you start seeing those kinds of things, there are some easy steps to sort of deal with it. One is that you develop a culture where everybody uh, is free to be critical about something. I don't mean critical in a negative sense, but I mean really, really willing to break it down and say, "What about this? Have we thought about this side of it?" Or "I don't really see it that way," or something like that. And I've heard uh, Dr. Wayne talk about situations where people have done that for him. And sometimes it's been out of rebellion, but there are times when it's been exactly what needed to be said and really caused him to so a good leader is going to understand and discern those differences there. So develop that culture where everybody is free to speak their mind, to speak their heart, maybe better. Um, Another thing that you can do is if you are a leader, or if you're from the outside who has a high place, a solid place in the group, if the group needs to come to a decision about something, it needs to walk through a process or some activity. Uh, Sometimes it's just best to step back and say, "You guys to handle this," and let them take it and let them do it, because what tends to happen is the group will tend to align with what the dominant personality or the dominant figure in the group is saying or thinking. And whether it's good, bad, or whatever, they'll just start to fall in line behind. And so just by kind of passing the decision amongst the group and let them handling it, and just kind of stepping back and letting them walk through it themselves can help with preventing that. Sometimes you can if you have a large enough group, break it into smaller groups to work on problems, and then kind of pull them back together so everybody's not trying to force their ideas into uh, one bigger idea. Sometimes just bounce it off somebody else that's outside. Say, "We're talking about this. What do you think? This is something we're dealing with. What do you think?" Again, you got to do that carefully because outside people don't always have the same vision as you do. So it's going to be on. It's not going to be every situation you'll be doing that with. And one thing way back in our actually this whole idea came out of a situation in our government, oh heavens, 60 years ago when uh, Russia was starting to build up some defensive forces and actually sending some missiles and things to Cuba, which is very close to the United States. And so the President Kennedy and his team were uh, trying to make some decisions on what to do about that. And they decided to send a bunch of people into a place called the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, and the whole thing turned into be a massive, colossal failure. And he went back and he started walking through and thinking, why was that such a problem? Why didn't it work? And they begin to recognize that these things that we were talking about were beginning to happen. And so he would say that I think this is a good idea. If there were some generals that said this idea is a bad idea, it's not going to work, then somebody in the group would say wouldn't let him in and wouldn't let him talk about it. But one thing he did after that, which really was a really a neat idea for him, was before every meeting, and every time after that, when they had a high level meeting like that, he would pull one of the members of his cabinet, one of the members of one of his advisors aside, and say, "Your job today is to challenge everything they think. Everything that somebody says, you challenge it, uh, whether you agree or not." Now, honestly, that's a good way to sharpen your own perspective, just to be able to argue the other side of something. But what it did, it forced people to think more clearly about what they were doing, and to sort of get their own agendas, to get their own voices out of the way, and begin to listen to the voices that really mattered. Um, so those are some things that you can do to kind of, nip that groupthink problem in the bud and kick it out when things start getting so tight that that it's all good. I mean, it's not all good. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
You guys, have you guys been part of situations like that?
What was that, sorry?
Excuse me?
Oh,
Yeah,
what did you say?
yeah, I just didn't know if anybody had examples of that kind of situation where people where a team or a group would make a bad decision uh, without realizing what they were doing, going down a path of everybody trying to be so much on the same page and stuff that it kind of led them in a bad direction. That's all right.
Yeah. Did.
And actually, the worst example for me was in a church I was in. So, uh, NMJ, that's a kind of a common reaction from in the United States amongst lower level workers. NMJ, somebody will bring up a problem or something, say, well, NMJ, anybody?
Not bad.
Not my job.
Not my job. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
exactly. Not my job.
Not my monkey, not my circus.
Yeah, okay, not my circus.
My circus, not my monkey.
Not my monkey, not my circus.
Yeah. Or like if you rent some equipment, then NMS is not my stuff. You go ahead and tear it up and then take it back. There's something that tends to happen. It's not really the kind of classic NMJ thing that we talk about, but something that kind of happens sometimes, and I almost promise every one of you's seen this happen. But when people are in a group or in a team or they're working with a lot of other people, they feel like their work's not noticed, nobody pays attention, and they don't have to put in their fair share. They'll start slacking off. And they kind of get this idea, well, everybody else will cover for me, nobody will notice that I'm just kind of sliding. I know that never happens for you guys now, but I bet you guys have seen that out in the heathen world, right? So, but
It's
it's
all right.
easy.
We're still getting the NMJ.
Excuse me. I didn't hear that. Sorry.
No, I said we still can get a little bit of the NMJ.
Yeah.
Maybe not you not quoting it, but yes, the attitude.
Well, one thing I told my kids my whole life, their whole lives, and a lot of other people too, is life would be a piece of cake if you didn't have to work with people. And it's not that I'm being cynical about it, but because life would be miserable and lonely if you didn't have people around. But all of the challenges that we face in our day-to-day lives come from other people. Uh, and
Right.
so understanding how to work and live and carry on our lives with other people is really useful. So uh, the easiest way to address this problem though is one is just to have a positive culture where everybody is engaged, everybody loves being part of the team, loves being part of the work, and everybody's committed to the team and to the group, which also means cohesiveness can really help. So building that environment that kind of draws people in and helps them to have a compelling vision to work towards and those kind of things. Most importantly is accountability. Teams and groups work best if there's a group recognition and a group reward for successes, but also individual accountability. How are you doing today? You know, Tom, well, tell me about what you've done today, or tell me not that you're being judgmental or trying to start peeling and prying, but just to make sure everybody knows that you're paying attention, that they're not hiding. Uh,
Good. Hiding.
yeah.
Actually, when my sister moved to Holland, because they're very direct, her biggest thing at the end, because we were nurses, and at the end of the shift, they would come up and whoever was leading the shift at the time would ask each member of the team individually, "How do you feel you went today?" And she said the first time she was offended, it like what? And they would wait until each person answered, and then they would give their feeling as the leader as to how they think they went today. She
Wow.
said, but it cleared up any issues at the time. She says it was confronting whenever I first moved to Holland from Ireland, and she says, yeah, no, they don't leave anything unsaid at the end of the shift.
Really interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
I think that's a good idea because I think as it was, we worked Tuesday to Friday, and on Tuesday I was a little bit lazy. And then so yesterday I come in and then I did a task list of what things that I was going to accomplish for the day because I work in the office. And then by the end of the day I had them ticked off, but it made me feel like I did the jobs that I set myself to, and that it kept me on task when I had done that.
Yes.
So that's something that I like started yesterday. But it was a good thing, like talking about that, being accountable to yourself. Like sometimes people aren't around to keep you accountable, although it could be good for you for a time, but then taking responsibility to be accountable to yourself and for the jobs that you set out for yourself, not going into the day with not having a plan, but purposefully planning or writing stuff down. That helps me well.
Yeah, and you've actually hit on something that is actually one of the most important things that we can do in leading, managing, and working with organizations is creating. I've talked a lot about the culture that we create, and a culture of accountability is really, really helpful. And so what you're talking about is just a culture of accountability, and both of you ladies have kind of hit different sides. One is I'm accountable to myself for what I've done, for my contributions and things. And so I feel comfortable that I've answered to myself for what I've done today or haven't done, where I've come up short. But also the culture of feeling like what I do is open on the table for everybody. And so sort of that openness and that we were talking about a while ago. But that accountability in the culture is really a huge asset. If people feel like, and now the challenging thing for me personally, and I think out of part of his personality and part of his culture, is to be able to do that without feeling like I'm being judgmental or critical towards somebody else. I'm not doing it to try to ride them, like we say, ride them like a rented mule. Uh, I'm not. That's not the point, but just to make sure everybody's clear. And so your example about Holland is a great example of that, where people understand that's the game. And it's not that you're trying to find a way to beat me up. It's to try to find a way to make sure everybody's accountable and everybody's honest. And we've dealt with issues, and if you deal with issues beforehand, then life's a lot easier anyway, right? So fantastic, guys. Uh, yeah, and I actually have in my notes, but the best part of the culture, best if accountability is part of the culture, that people feel like that uh, they're everything is open and on the table. Um, I couldn't think of a better way to introduce this last one other than the scripture in Acts. There were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. Parthians and Medes and Elamites, Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, Libya, Cretans, and the Arabs. And later on it says these who have turned the world upside down. So all these people from these radically different cultures came together, and when they came together, they turned the world upside down. And so diversity. Uh, there's really no more diverse organizations or places on the planet than in Christianity. Uh, Sometimes it doesn't work very well because we forget we're Christians and focus on diversity things first. But it's become a huge topic in our country over the last 30, 40, well, 60 years. But uh, and we talk a lot about diversity, and it's a huge part of everything we do. Now that's morphed into DEI, which is a whole another issue. Uh, what's the atmosphere around diversity like for you guys?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always say we no longer have to go into all the world to preach the gospel, and all the world's come to us.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Big mixing bowl culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because some cultures are more likely to assimilate when they come, and they sort of focus on what's common and they build towards the common. And then there's other cultures you find that come in and they try to maintain their culture within the culture, to the point that some of them don't even learn English, they don't even learn ways of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Culture. So you sort of can see both happening, where some people start putting like this culture as the foremost, and that's what they want to become, and other people are like holding on to the culture from where they came, to the point that they don't even speak English. You find they've been here for decades. You go, wow.
Yeah. 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 I grew up in the southwestern United States, and there are a lot of people down. A lot of my classmates in high school, their families didn't speak. So and they've been here for 2 or 3 generations sometimes. So I understand. Yeah, I get that. And on the other hand, you kind of enjoy the cultural differences, and you can kind of appreciate and take advantage of that and enjoy that. But if you don't actually get together, then those cultural differences don't really do anything at all.
And because my little boy, he's 4, he goes to daycare, and I can see at his daycare center that they're like they have different cultural days and stuff. They celebrate, I think, for the different nationalities of the children that are there. So they're very adapting and open, I think, to like cultural diversity and sort of like that celebrating the individuality of like the culture and the people and stuff like that. So being a part of that community and stuff, because there's probably only like 2 in Andre's class, maybe like 2 or 3 like Caucasian, which Andre's one of them, children, and then the other children are all other different nationalities. So like it's good for him to have those friendships, and then like when I go in there, like, you know, I get to say hello to different like parents and stuff like that. So no, it's a good little like community setting, and just talking about that, like, I mean, we're in the community, but we're usually just in the school, but being a part of that community like helps me to understand, I guess, the different people and nationalities and stuff like that as well, the kids. And I think it's good for Andre, because we come from like a small like country town where like there was Aboriginal kids and then a couple of little like Asian kids, but like the majority are like Caucasian and Aboriginal. So like being down here, it's like a more diverse. I think it's good for my little boy and like even like Jala, and I now just to have that more diversity and seeing like and making other friends and people and stuff that are from different cultures and that.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up in the Southwest and in California and Colorado mostly, and so growing up there are a lot of Latinos around, and some had been there for generations, some had just actually the first generation, and a lot of illegal immigrants who were they were mostly farm labor and stuff at that time. But so I was very familiar, and then we had racial conflicts around as well, and so I was very familiar with the racial issues between the Latinos and the whites in the Southwest. And then when I moved to the South, where to Alabama, which is in the deep South, where the racial issues are radically different, because the racial issues here in this part of the country are mostly between the African Americans and the whites, and other groups just don't really. Actually, I only had met one black person before I moved to the South, a kid that went to another high school in my conference. He was the only black kid I'd ever actually physically met, and that was just this is so and so one time. But one of my some of the guys I worked with in Mobile, some black guys, they'd come up and start talking about, oh, you know, you white guys this, you white guys that, and you do this to that to us and that to us, and it's kind of funny. I just stop and look at them and say, you know, I'm not from around here. I don't understand all these racial things you guys are talking about. You have to explain it to me. And I tried, and that was one of those little divine inspirations that pop up, because anytime I would say that, it was the end of the conversation. They never treated me that way again. And because I honestly didn't really understand, you know, my mother and grandmother from the South, and so they had their perspective, but they sort of left those behind a long time ago. But it was just kind of one of those things where I couldn't really connect to it. When they understood I couldn't connect to it, then we were on the same footing. You know, we could kind of start from mutual ignorance, I guess. But the issues under diversity, now we talk about like having diversity on teams, and so why do we like diversity on a team? We say we like diversity on a team. What does that do what does diversity do for us?
Different people bring different like strength to the team that you may not like have.
Mm-hmm.
You may have something that somebody else doesn't. And so when the team comes together, and yeah, like the different people, that diversity of what they bring, those strengths and stuff, like create the team to be a stronger team.
Yeah. Different talents, different backgrounds, different cultural perspectives, different ways of seeing the world, different
Yeah.
experiences, and I think can really be an asset to a group.
I think it brings a richness, like otherwise it can just get a bit plain. You know, if you've just got the one cultural viewpoint, it's like, well, it's pretty much like if you all grew up in the same place with the same cultural viewpoint, you pretty much just have a fairly down the line one sort of perspective, slightly varying, but the second you bring in the richness of different cultures, it becomes like a tapestry where it actually becomes beautiful and it gets sort of like a more tonality. It has like a richer sound, what that's produced from what they bring forth. Yeah, I think it probably more accurately reflects God as well, because obviously he said he calls us out of every kindred, tribe, and tongue, and you know, also then reminds me of the Tower of Babel, because obviously they had that when they were all together, and he says, well, in unity, nothing is impossible for them, but because they were bringing it to destruction at the time, he separated their languages and separated them so that they couldn't achieve what they wanted to. But obviously it shows that together they were able to achieve something great, that nothing was going to be impossible for them.
It's really, really interesting what you just said, because you've actually described two sides of it, right? On the one hand, diversity adds a lot. We can take a lot from the different things people bring together, and really be a more comprehensive group of people that deals with things more comprehensively. At the same time, there's a unity issue involved as well, and when we don't have unity, or another way of putting that from this conversation, when we don't have diversity, then we can get more done. And so on the one hand, diversity can really help. On the other hand, it can really be a problem, right? I'm not supposed to say that because that's not that's not what people really want to hear. But you know, and I really am glad you said that. That's a scriptural example of the Lord intervening to break things up a little bit. I tell you what, I want to come back to this. We'll continue with this a little bit next week. Because the more we talk about this, the more we can peel back layers and get down deeper. And I'm not going to take forever on it because it's not really the focus, but we'll continue the diversity thing next week. So, anything else? Any other comments? We've got about 2 minutes left, I think.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah. Yeah. Next week we'll move into vision, mission, and strategy. We'll finish this up first but it's actually kind of parallels. We can kind of easily transition from teams into vision, mission, and strategy using the diversity thing. So that's a great thing. If there are any other topics that you ever want to talk about, I think you guys have access to the syllabus. If not, I'll post that. But if there's any other topics you guys ever want to talk about, be sure and let me know, and we'll see what we can work in. Okay. So, everybody, did I wake anybody up or did I put you to sleep?
Waking up.
I didn't know if you're ready for the next thing on the calendar today or not. So I'd made it better or worse.
We're ready.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the hour, so we'll shut it off. I really am good to see you guys again. God bless every one of you. I pray for you often, and y'all take care. Okay.
God bless you.